It's the Rolling Stones. It's tough to stress just how important the group has been to the world of rock and roll. Here are some things you may not know about this legendary band.
You really think you're gonna get the Rolling Stones to do a TV ad?
Remember that one episode of Mad Men where Don Draper tries to score an agreement with the Stones to record a jingle for Heinz Baked Beans? Sounds unlikely? Well, as he points out, they've done it before. The cereal was Rice Krispies, and because the internet never forgets anything, ever, the curious can still check it out. But is it really them or just a sound-alike? Real or fake? Snopes got confirmation from Kellogg's that it was, indeed, the Stones singing that chirpy little jingle. It was even written by Brian Jones and aired only in the United Kingdom about a year before the band got huge with the release of Satisfaction. If the Rolling Stones had opted to stick with their original name and stay known as the Blues Boys, would music lovers still be as impressed? It was their break, and Brian Jones was talking to Jazz News when he needed a name, fast. Fortunately, there was a Muddy Waters album sitting nearby. Track 5, Rollin' Stone. They stuck with that for the first performance, and the rest is history. So what about that infamous logo? There's a rumor it's based on Mick Jagger's distinctive pout, but that's just part of the story. What really happened, says Radio X, is that the Stones called John Pash, an art student from the Royal College of Art, and commissioned him to design a logo for them. Jagger had some inspiration to offer him, the Hindu goddess Kali. He found a drawing of her with a very pointed tongue, and Pash himself later said, "A lot of people asked me if it was based on Mick Jagger's lips, and I have to say it wasn't, initially, but it might have been something that was unconscious and also really dovetailed into the basic idea of the design."
It's kind of a universal statement, sticking out your tongue.
Anyone who's been to a Stones concert post-1994 might have noticed the new guy filling Bill Wyman's shoes on bass. Well, he's not so new anymore. His name is Daryl Jones, even though he rarely appears in the group's promotional materials. He also hasn't actually been credited with being a real Rolling Stone, even though he's played on pretty much every song, album, and tour since he joined. And it's a big deal, one that means he's hired on and paid like other backup musicians instead of being entitled to a full cut of the band's profits. He's told the BBC, "I've been a sideman for more than 30 years now, and I would not be being completely honest if I said that it would not be wonderful, it would not be amazing to be considered and, jump into this organization as a full member. But that is not a decision I am in a position to make." Jones isn't the only one who's been in that position. Ronnie Wood was a side guy for more than 10 years before he was made an official member of the group. And remember Ian Stewart, the keyboardist who was in the group for more than 25 years, starting in the 60s? If not, that's probably because manager Andrew Loog Oldham pushed him out of all the promo materials for the band because he didn't look the part. Few rock and roll stories are more tragic than the story of Brian Jones, the rhythm guitarist for the Stones from the beginning. Rolling Stone was reporting on his untimely death in 1969, just 7 years after the group was formed. Jones had been pulled from the bottom of his swimming pool, dead by the time paramedics got there. The official ruling was misadventure, and there were all kinds of reports of sleeping pills, alcohol, and drugs all playing a part. Sadly, no one was truly surprised, as he'd been fired from the group just a month earlier on the heels of an arrest over drug charges. According to Rolling Stone, Jones had floated away from the group post-Beggar's Banquet and announced he would be leaving not long after. Was his death an open and shut case? Just another story of the rock and roll lifestyle taking a brilliant musician too soon? Maybe, maybe not. In 2009, The Guardian reported that more than 600 new documents pertaining to Jones's death had been handed over to police. That sparked rumors all over again, whispered speculation that he hadn't died accidentally, but that he'd been murdered. The story most frequently repeated by friends was that he had actually been killed by a builder working on his home. Will the truth ever come out? Perhaps it already has, but that doesn't mean the story of Brian Jones' tragic death won't remain disputed. Part of the problem that comes with sifting through the Stones' history and trying to make sense of it all is that it's a little foggy. Take 1977. That was the year Rolling Stone says Keith Richards ended up getting a suspended sentence for a heroin conviction in Canada. And part of that sentence was to play a benefit concert for the blind. It wasn't just a small token affair either. Around 10,000 people were in attendance. And in spite of Oshawa, Ontario residents worrying their city was about to be pillaged and burned to the ground, everyone was Canadian-level polite. 2,600 of those tickets were reserved for blind concertgoers. And how that came about is Stones-level strange. According to The Rolling Stones, a musical biography, the band had befriended a blind woman named Rita Bedard, whom they met after she hitchhiked to all their shows. Richards had volunteered to give her a ride himself, and she was so impressed by his thoughtfulness that after his arrest, she approached the judge and appealed for leniency, and suggested they perform the benefit concert in lieu of jail time. Sure, it sounds unlikely, and even the Stones' biographer expressed doubts it ever happened. But the concert was played, Richards didn't go to jail, and in 2015, he tweeted a picture of himself reunited with Bedard, his blind angel from Toronto. Cocaine, heroin, LSD. It's not just the Stones that are associated with some of the most hardcore drugs out there. At the time, especially, drugs were a major part of the entire music industry. But Keith Richards has a reputation for elevating drug use into something supernatural. According to Richards, entire tours, particularly one in 1975, were entirely fueled by a type of pharmaceutical-grade cocaine called Merck cocaine. It's called Merck cocaine because the German pharmaceutical company Merck was once a major supplier. Medicinal cocaine had been around for so long that Sigmund Freud also extolled the virtues of the same stuff, officially used as a local anesthetic. All drug runs have to come to an end sometime, though, and that particular high came to a screeching halt in Fordyce, Arkansas. The Rolling Stones were busted with a car full of the stuff and somehow talked their way out of drug charges. God knows what I'm on about in that song. It's such a mishmash, all the nasty subjects in one go. That's what Mick Jagger had to say about Brown Sugar in 1995, when Rolling Stone asked him just what was up with what was one of their most controversial songs. According to Jagger, he wrote Brown Sugar while he was in Australia, working on the movie Ned Kelly and attempting to rehabilitate himself after a hand injury. He was surprised it was as successful as it was, and added, "I would never write that song now. I would probably censor myself. I'd think, oh God, I can't. I've got to stop. I can't just write raw like that." There are plenty of fascinating tidbits in the song's history. It was written about a strange combination of sex, slavery, and interracial relationships, which makes it even stranger that it was recorded in Alabama, a state that had laws on the books making interracial marriage illegal until 2000. The first time it was played in public was just as controversial. It debuted at their ill-fated free concert at Altamont. It's not just the listeners who think the lyrics aged poorly, with many modern listeners finding them to be a little bit too edgy and racist and misogynistic. And the band seems to agree with this. Jagger regularly changes the words to the song when it's performed in concert, and both he and Keith Richards have had a tendency to distance themselves from the content of their own song. Gimme Shelter is an incredible Rolling Stones song, in no small part because of the addition of a powerful female vocalist. That's soul singer Mary Clayton, who had already worked with names like Elvis Presley and Ray Charles long before the Stones gave her a call. It was a phone call that was responsible for one of the most chilling performances given on a Stones album. According to Clayton, it was nearly midnight when the phone rang on the night she recorded her vocals for the song. Her husband initially said no to her involvement because at the time she was very late in pregnancy, but Clayton eventually went.
"I'm going to wear this out real good so I can get back to my warm spot."
She had to sit down to sing, did only 3 takes, and was done. History had been made, and soon, tragedy would strike. Not long after she left the studio, she suffered a miscarriage, possibly brought on by the stress and intensity of her late-night performance. She would later say that for years, she was completely unable to listen to the song because of the memories. And the Stones have never forgotten. In 2015, Clayton was awarded the Clark and Gwen Terry Award for Courage through the Jazz Foundation of America, and Keith Richards was on hand to perform Gimme Shelter live. Clayton herself, the New York Times said, was accepting the award via a taped segment from her LA home. She was only slowly returning to the public eye after being in a tragic car accident and losing both her legs. On August 24, 2021, the Rolling Stones shared some heartbreaking news in the form of a statement that read, in part, It is with immense sadness that we announce the death of our beloved Charlie Watts. He passed away peacefully in a London hospital earlier today, surrounded by his family. Details, amid a request for privacy, were sparse. But Variety noted that his passing came not long after he pulled out of a rescheduled post-COVID concert tour. He was replaced by Steve Jordan, and Watts explained, "For once, my timing has been a little off. I am working hard to get fully fit, but I have today accepted on the advice of the experts that this will take a while." Watts had undergone an unspecified medical procedure, and while doctors had said it was completely successful, a subsequent recovery period was necessary. He last performed with the group at an August 2019 concert in Miami and during a pandemic livestream in 2020. He is survived by his wife, Shirley, who he married in 1964, and their daughter, Serafina. He was 80 years old and had been a member of the Stones for 58 of those years. Keith Richards once summed up what it was like to work with him, saying, "Charlie Watts is one of the best hidden assets I've had. I can throw him ideas and I never have to worry about the beat. It's a blessing." Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more grunge videos about your favorite bands are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.